Hey everyone, Tactics here with my final advanced route walkthrough of the Dragonflight expansion, and we're going to end it off with one of my favorite dungeons, the Azure Vault. I've got an extremely messy but timed plus 18 run here for you, and I'll be running you through the route that we used, some mistakes that we made, and how you can avoid it yourself, as well as just potential route variations for Fort and Tyrannical, and other pieces of tech or tips and tricks to help you get through this dungeon easily. As a reminder, this route is not going to be pug friendly and is instead targeted at coordinated groups or players pushing for the 0.1% title. And with that said, let's get into it here, where the first pull is a little larger than probably most groups are used to, where we're going to be adding the tree and the other additional lashers around the tree into the entire first room. So I'm going to run out here, tag it with a sigil, and then we're going to grab everything here, all the whelps as well, to trigger the shriek on these guys in the center. We've got one person, the mage, assigned to solo kick this tender on any, I believe, range kicks. If you have a 20-second range kick, you can solo that tender, so the evoker with the talent as well can do it. So something to keep in mind. My first sigil is just too slow, so we do get a tick right off the top here. Not the end of the world though. That's easily healed through with only a single tick. And this is then where we start going into our stop rotation or our CC rotation on these guys. Something we did realize is we probably should have assigned a bit more stops to the actual Crystal Furies themselves, because I think I never drop stacks on the Crystal Furies here, and ideally we would do that. So in the future, make sure you have, like, getting to 3 stacks as a Vengeance Team Hunter in your CDs in Lust is fine. At this point though, we probably should have started assigning a few stops to the actual Crystal Furies, just so I would drop stacks. I think even one stop would have probably been enough to let me drop stacks here potentially. So something to keep in mind. I did also lose thread on this one. I'm going to try and get that one back with a quick taunt. And then we're just going back to the CC rotation on the lashers, making sure those casts don't go off. And like I said, we probably should have stopped one of these shards in here, because I'm going to cheat, I believe, with all this bursting and also 6 stacks of yeah, I also missed the Master Spell. The Master Spell went off, but it missed me, it looked like. So I do proc my cheat there, which is very unfortunate, and I'm immediately punished for it. So that's good. But that's that pull. We're moving in here. And this is a pull that is often it's either split into 2, which we're going to do for the bit of a safer pull on the lower plus 18 key. Azureblade is a very free timer, as you'll see in this run. But a lot of groups on the cutting edge keys are actually going to snap the next pull down below. And I think we'll do both, because we're going to mess up this pull. So I'm going to go and tag these mobs and run back in. Everyone else is going to be waiting out here. I had one person come out and help me tag mobs. And we just have a few individual kicks on these initial lashers as they come in, just because they're a bit staggered. Some of them cast out of line of sight, and that's okay. And then we're basically just trying to conserve space here in this room and walk around in a bit of a circle to avoid the wild eruption swirlies on the ground there, just to make things safer. And same deal, we have, stop rotation. Again, most of my sigils have been used, so a lot of the sigils are not in use. Individual kicks can be useful as well there. We had one go out, but generally we should have enough stops to handle this. The problem, I think, comes over here. I was not expecting it. I'm trying to save CDs now for the next pull. I probably was a bit too greedy. I probably should have just ripped this meta as I got it. But what happens basically, I think we use Blast Wave as a stop, and I wasn't prepared for them to get knocked behind me. You see here, and I get immediately back hit. And here, I think I should have gone a little bit further away to avoid this melee, and then fell dev'd, and I would have been fine. But, it is what it is. Little mistake on my part, and we do end up wiping, I think, to that. So we're going in here. Unfortunate. So what we decided to do is we're just going to snap these down. So this is what a lot of people would do with the entire pull. We have almost the entire pull. We're like, okay, we're not doing this again. So you just grab the pull here. Everyone else can go at this point. And then I would just walk off like this, and they'll snap down to us, and we'll start picking up all these tenders here. And basically, how to manage this is you have to have 4 of those 20-second-ish kicks if you wanted to pull 4 tenders. If you don't have 4 of those, you'd have to pull 3 tenders, focus a tender down, and then grab them. We do have 4 kicks here. I think we're just slow to add the 4th tender. Usually a range would go and grab that far tender to add it in, just so you don't have to walk all the way over there. But like I said, we're a bit disorganized at the moment, I would say. So we're focusing on getting stops on the tenders, and then of course individual kicks are now saved specifically for the the tenders. So we're using stops on the lashers, kicks on the tenders. That's what you need to do, because the tenders are of course lieutenant mob. So we have the kicks here. Our Resto Druid has his kick, so that is how we have the 4th kick available. And other than that, we're just kind of AoEing down here, focusing prow damage into the tenders since they are the biggest health mob, but otherwise just kind of AoEing. going around the room. And like I said, we would have pulled this in earlier. I think we were about to pull it in again, but then our mage died, and so we were down a kick, so we had to wait. And now we're back, and we're able to add in the tender, because of course the boss RP is tied to killing these tenders. So, this first area, not super clean for us, but it's not the end of the world, actually. It's potentially you could have done some things differently earlier on. Like I said, you could have snapped that second pull all the way down immediately, like you saw us do on the balcony. You could have just, not had your tank die in the first pull and proc their cheat death. So could have committed more stops to the actual big rockmen there. Like I said, probably just one stop I could have done at any time on one of the rockmen, and it would have saved my life. If I was a couple steps closer to the group to get in the mass spell, that also probably would have saved my life. So a lot of small things here that we can adjust. Then we go straight into the boss. This boss is pretty straightforward. There's two kind of main strategies for this boss. A lot of like Western teams are taking the boss in the middle of the room, like I'm going to do here, and just pointing towards the edge. A lot of the Eastern teams, like a lot of Chinese teams that we've seen, are bringing the boss to the edge of the room and then pointing, hit 2 trees on the edge of the room. It honestly really doesn't matter. You can see here, like I'm going to be able to hit 3 stacks with this, but sometimes you can hit 3 stacks from the outside. It's just whatever. So generally for our strategy, I will see where the first spawns of flowers are. Here they are, they come out, and then I will see where the middle one is and pull the boss slightly away from them so that I can hit the middle ones, and then aim through these ones and try and basically hit these 2 behind it. And I only really care about hitting 1 other stack, because if you clear 2 stacks, you're good. That's all you care about. But if you hit 3, it's a bonus, and I think I get the bonus stack here, which is nice. CD coverage, I Firebrand on pull, and that gives me Firebrand coverage for the first dot and the second dot. So that's something you can do, and then you just need something else for the third dot. And again, also having either a defensive for this, or you can double leap backwards. Like I have Feldev and Firebrand. I think my Firebrand does fall off, so that's why I end up Feldeving here. But you can double leap away straight backwards as a Vengeance Demon Hunter and outrange that frontal as well if you don't have any coverage. Something you can do. And otherwise, it's a pretty normal boss fight. We do need, excuse me, we do need defensive coverage on every single one of those stomps. So that was our mass barrier from the mage. And you're going to see we're going to have some defensive coverage for every single one of those stomps, because no one else really needs to pop for anything else. I don't believe the circles are going to kill anyone. You see there, the middle ones, just kind of back up, shoot them in between these so that it does actually hit both, as well as behind. And I hit a third one again, actually. That's surprising. I wasn't expecting that, but rinse and repeat for the rest of this boss fight. This is probably Zephyr on this. Oh, no, it already happened, actually. This was a Scales. Yeah, this was a Scales. And just be aware, if there are plants up, you need to commit something major. Maybe large personals in that situation, but something to keep in mind. That is this boss. From here, we're moving down, and we're going to do this pretty standard pull. We are having someone run through and grab the little pink dudes over here to add them to this pull, just to have them. So to avoid doing a second pull. And we're just going into the corner here. Also of note, this Arcane Fury, very, very nice to have your mage souls spell steal that. It gives them a nice little damage boost. So that's kind of why we do a lot of pulls with these Furies and spread them out. So to give that mage a damage amp. And again, we're just kind of rotating through stops here. We have kicks on 2 of the elementals. 2 players are assigned to kick those guys. And otherwise, we're just using stops on the Furies here. We do let a couple go off when I'm in kind of CDs. I have meta now going now, so I have a couple stacks. It's not the end of the world, even if I got another stack, but I think we are starting to get more stops in there. And I'm going to drop stacks, unlike the first pull. Very good. Otherwise, again, using the pillar here, you can LOS as well. So I'm going to use a stop here, and I'm going to start approaching the pillar, get around it, no stack. Something you can do here in this pull. Then we're going through here. What you'll see some people do is they'll skip that pull, and then they'll have their Demon Hunter Misery, these 2 guys, and then they can all run through, and they can either snap these guys into the next pull if you don't meld, or you can have your Demon Hunter tank meld once you get through, and that will also just drop them. So you can get through those 2 guys if you're skipping that pull. Some people do a pull up here and a pull at the bottom if you're skipping that one pull we just did. We're just going to do one pull at top. We have the worst pat in existence, like actually the worst pat, because basically what we're trying to pull is this patrol, this the right patrol, and this pack over here. And so we have the just actual worst pat. They're both in the terrible spots. So we're going right here because these guys start moving first, and we're just grouping this pack into this pack again. There's 1 Fury in this group, which means that the mage has a spell steal target for damage, and there's actually another Fury up here. So there's 2, so they can steal a bunch of damage amps, especially if they desync their damage amp more than that. But something to be aware of. Keep your kick on the Seal Keeper. I believe we also just have kicks on these elementals, and then we have stops again on a mix of one of the elementals as a stop, and I think we'll just call stops for the piercing shards as well, just to make this pull relatively easy. We did have lust coming up because of how much we trolled at the beginning of this dungeon. We don't want to lust here though. Our lust is the next pull, but just be aware, if you troll a little bit, you can get this lust. I think because of our delayed lust here, we do end up scuffing a bloodlust, but also some higher keys choose to scuff a bloodlust in this dungeon because of how free the timer is, and so you'd rather have value lusts than get an additional lust. So we're going to be lusting the next pull here because we are not doing a pull below. We did the pull previous to the rings, so we are instead going to jump straight down into the Azureblade room and do a pull over there. Getting straight down, lots of ways to do it. If you don't have a priest for levitate or a mage for slow fall or like a glide ability, you can also use the parasol toys. I think there's even one on the trading post for June. If you don't have one, you can get it pretty easily, I think, in Shadowlands, and like the Revendreth zone, I believe, is the parasol I have. But if you don't have one, you can buy one on the trading post, and that helps to the skip if you don't have a priest or a mage in your group. And you can just jump down here. And we are going into the Azureblade room, and we're going to start grouping this pack, and then we're going to have Lust and CDs for this pull here. Technically, if you wanted to skip these guys, I could Fear Sigil these guys, and everyone could walk in, and we could delay pulling them because of how terrible and atrocious our pad is. Just the story of this run, bad pads. So I'm going to be basically avoiding the ice cutters in this group by ranging them until I'm grouped. The pack is fully grouped. Because the ice cutters is what you're very, very scared of here. Potentially so much so to the point that you are going to use stops on ice cutters there, which we are starting to do in this grouping of the pack, as we use stops on a couple of the ice cutters while I'm still getting rolling here. And we're, of course, getting this lieutenant now. We have Lust rolling. CDs are rolling now as well. 2 kicks on the icy bindings. We do miss an icy bindings there, which is not ideal. I think we commit mass dispel to that. And I am going to range this first breath because that kick went off, and I'm not super confident. I didn't have anything like Meta or Feldev or Fiery Brand for that first one, but you're going to see here, I have Meta rolling here. I have Fiery Brand as well, which I'm going to pop, or not Fiery Brand, sorry, Feldev, and then I have Fiery Brand for the next one, which is already out. So now I have coverage for these cones, so I'm not too worried, but that first one, my coverage was a little bit light, so that's why I jumped out. From here, we're going to pull the rest of the stuff onto the other side of the room. I am going to link a route, though, for, I believe it's Tyran, that doesn't pull, like, it pulls these 2 guards into that pull we just did, and it doesn't pull these mobs. To basically what it does is it consolidates a bunch of the pulls, and it minuses 1 from the route. So that's a pretty nice Tyran route we've been trying out, but this is, of course, is the fort route, so we have a little bit more time. As you'll see, again, we heavily troll later in the dungeon, and we trolled at the beginning of the dungeon too. So it also just makes it a little safer. But that previous pull obviously gets a bit more dangerous because there's 2 more Vault Guards involved. And same deal here, rotating through defensives, getting kicks on the Runesteel Keeper, and occasionally using stops on these Icy Cutters just to survive them. And you can also do a little kiting stuff around this pillar. I don't know if I end up doing it. Maybe I do after these 2. No, I just stand my ground. Almost died there. That's fine. Oh, I do end up doing it at the end here. You can kind of kite around this pillar, and it keeps the mobs in one spot if you do it correctly. You're going to Azureblade here. Pretty straightforward boss. We just call for kicks onto these draconic images. We use Silence Sigil as well sometimes because it's not really needed outside of this pull either. The next pull doesn't have any kicks, so we're just basically assigning kicks and silences and like stuns, things like that on these images to make sure none of these kicks go off, because especially as you start getting into these higher keys, it's pretty much a one-shot if any of those kicks go off, so you really, really want to avoid that from happening. Ideally, we would have pulled the boss a little bit further, but we had a pretty bad spawn there, so I'm just trying to pull the boss on top of them. And defensive coverage, just have something for every cleave. Technically, you can actually arrange the cleave. I wonder if I actually did it here. I don't think I did, but you could leap away directly away from the cleave, and it fully avoids it. Things like Brewmasters can roll away. Warriors can heroic leap, that kind of thing, to outrange the cleave, assuming it's in cast. It has to start casting first. And then we're going to the intermission phase where everyone, as you see here, ranged, they're all stacking up in the efflorescence. I am throwing glaive to apply my brand to all the illusions, and we're just grouped up here for healing, making the rest of Druid's life a little easier. This phase is not as scary as it used to be, but still is relatively high throughput, so make your healer's life as easy as possible. As you can see, we also popped some defensives here. Vampiric Touch, or Vampiric Embrace, sorry, and Mage Barrier has been popped, and Zephyr as well. We staggered them out, and then we're back into the boss phase here, where again, you know, you have kicks and silences and stuff on the images. I eat the frontal, bring the boss over, cleave it down, continue kicking, whatever. And then once we actually start getting the boss close to kill range, we'll start seeing these images. They are, what are they? I believe they're dragon. Are they dragons? I can't actually tell. They're currently typeless. I think they're dragons. So like things like polymorph don't work. But if you have like a rogue for blind, paralyze from monks, fear sigil from demon hunters works as well. So that's what you can do. You can hard CC these mobs. I think we do it later on, right at the end. Yeah, we get this image. We're like, oh, we're killing. I throw a fear sigil and we just don't hit it, and we just kill the boss. That saves you some damage. If you think you can kill the boss within the start of the phase, you can do this from the beginning, assuming you have enough CCs. And that's something you did a lot in season 1. But the comp currently in season 4 doesn't really have a lot of long-term CCs that can handle those mobs. Now we're going down here, and we are skipping breakers, because breakers are hell. They're the hardest mob by far, and so the more of these you can skip, the better. So we try and skip the first one and then the last two, and there's a few different ways groups are doing this. Most of them are having their Vengeance Demon Hunter tank pull this guy out. Group runs in, tries not to aggro anything. Vengeance Demon Hunter jumps in, melds it off. You can also do this with your mage. The mage can pull it back, or they can like alter, and then they can alter blink invis. You can also have anyone who's a night elf, like you'd have your druid pull this guy all the way back, meld it off, and then Wernstone in, for example. Lots of different ways to do this, depending on what your comp is. As long as you have some way to invis or meld, like a hunter or a rogue or a mage or a night elf, you are good. So see the group runs in there. And I do want to be relatively quick to get in here. I want to avoid that shoulder slam hit, and I want to get aggro on things. It is possible for people to avoid that, but just, be aware of it. I also probably should have popped Demon Spikes when I pulled that guy, because his melee pulled me down like 70% of my health, so be aware of that. And then we're going all the way down here, and this is a CD pull for us. And so we're just doing a nice big pull all the way down the stairs here, because the defining factor is definitely the breaker. The breaker is what we're scared of here. Getting aggro on all this stuff, coming back to the group. And you can see the breaker roar does drop people relatively low, especially if you have the charge debuff. And note that the charge debuff can be combat dropped off, right? So feign, vanish, invis, meld, all those things that I was just talking about also completely prevents that charge from going off and puts it on CD. We could have done a bit of a better job here, I think, on controlling the frogs. They're jumping around a little bit more than expected. Probably should have used some chains and some fears and just other AoE stops here, just to keep them in one spot more. And we're starting to do it now, but at the start of the pull, it probably would have been a little bit better. I think I cheat there, yeah. Interesting. Yeah, probably, I think that was... Yeah, I just had bad coverage here because my meta runs out, and I should have called for Bark. I should have called for Bark around here, and that probably would have saved me. But it's okay. That's okay. That's why we have a cheat death. I also must have stood in something, I think. But it's okay. And then we have Firebrand. We have defensives now to kind of hold us out. Rotating through here. The big guy is dead, so at this point, we could have actually chain pulled. I think we're a little worried about the bursting, but we end up, not rolling there, which is good. So at this point, we're just going to dip out and pull the next grouping, which again only has one of the big men in it, one of the breakers, who are very, very scary. Again, melee very hard and do a lot of group damage. Now, let's look at that book for a second, because basically there's a spot you can stand to avoid frogs jumping to you in this room. We don't use it here, but it is basically under that book. So there's a crystal here. If you have an evoker, you can jump on this crystal, and then you can jump from the crystal to this pedestal the book is on, and then you can jump from the pedestal the book is on to the book itself. And then when you're on the book itself, you can rescue someone on here. You don't want to have too many people on here, because the Draken and Breaker's charge will still spread the debuff to everyone in the circle if you're all on here. But what you can do is, in this comp, the Shadow Priest is not super mobile, so you can throw the Shadow Priest up here, and they can just AFK and not need to worry about dodging the frogs or anything. Whereas having the Evoker, the Resto Druid, and the Mage down here is not as hard, right? They have a lot more mobility, so a lot of groups are putting their Shadow Priest up on this book just so they can AFK. Neat little tip to help increase their damage slightly. And then we're doing the rest of the grouping. I think we're talking about the spot right now, and he's like trying to get up there just to see it. But it's basically you jump from the crystal to the book stand, and then from the book stand to the book itself. And they're testing the crystal itself right now, but I don't think it's working. But yeah, it does spread the shoulder slam, because anyone over there would have also gotten the shoulder slam debuff. So be aware of that. You can't all stack up if you're on one of those spots for the shoulder slam debuff. But it's pretty standard pull otherwise. Breakers here, I'm going to pull them off into the corner. Again, I'm going to be like, oh, they hit very hard and commit a shit ton of cooldown to that. I almost die immediately. It's good. And then I think someone is in combat, so they're going to end up dying here, which is fine. And I'm going to leave, backflip off the edge, and then meld over here. And we're just going to mass res them because they got in combat. And then I believe we actually wipe on this boss somehow. So this boss is actually very scary. The bombs hit quite hard, but also the intermission hit is just, even when you're in the circle, you need to apply massive damage reductions to actually survive it. So, you know, frost bombs, I think you need to have something minor, and you need to not eat a tick, right? So that's how much it drops everyone. I think probably natty. So just watch your health. You need to make sure you're topped for those frost bomb hits, and you need to make sure you're topped for the absolute zero here. And so we're going to commit mage barrier, and I think our evoker is still gonna, yeah, he cheats there. That's why his health doesn't move, is because he cheated. So there is a ton of damage coming out on this boss fight, and it's mostly burst damage, right? And it's all about getting topped between this. And so you'll see some of the overlaps in this get scarier and scarier because the frost bomb detonation becomes very close to the absolute zero here. And I think he walks off the edge here. Yeah, that's so funny. Don't recommend doing that. But see, this frost bomb detonation, you see the frost bombs are coming out, and the boss flies away while they're out still. And so this is the really scary ones where you need to get everyone topped again before this explosion goes out, because it does so much damage, right? And so we also pop major defensives here just to make sure people live. But we are going to end up wiping here. I think one of the healer dies potentially. To like one of these wombo combos. And it's a very, very scary fight, right? You need to manage your defensives on these things, and if you have spare defensives, you can use them on frost bombs. But I think ideally, if you have any major defensives, you usually don't want to spend them on frost bombs. It kind of depends on how many other defensives you have, and like Shadow Priest, for example, they have flash fade. They have a ton of very small defensives on very, very short CDs, so they can use those a lot. Right, same with mage and barriers, but evoker is not quite the same, right? He has mostly big CDs and scales and in Zephyr, and so he needs to rely on things like rescue shields and other things to actually survive some of the frost bomb hits. So depends on your comp here on what you need to spend defensives on. Like druids there, he can go bear. I think 1,000 unfortunate storming that killed him. There it was, but we're gonna reset this boss and run all the way back and kill it. But we don't need to talk about that boss anymore. All about kind of timing your C's and making sure you get out of these frost bomb puddles without eating a tick, right? Like it detonates, and well, the boss died there, but basically like it detonates, right? And then you want to move immediately so you don't eat additional damage. That's the biggest thing for the boss. Get out of insta so no one else health move after the initial hit. That's what you want to do. And we're jumping down to this boss, and this boss is all about having damage, defensives, or healing throughput, for example, on each of the crystal phases. Timing something is very, very important. Outside of that, for tanks, just a pretty standard boss. Dragon Strike hits very, very hard, so you want to make sure you have some defensive coverage for every single Dragon Strike, just so you don't get one shot. And in terms of the crystal stuff, it's all about timing stuff. So we are holding Lust, and we're going to be coming up to our pre-CDs in about 10 seconds here. And so what we're going to do, I believe, is we're going to rip Lust on this one. And then we have Lust, we have the priest CDs not quite up, but we do have mage CDs, and the priest is going to pop his CDs as soon as he does get them here. Boom, they're popped, and this is going to hold us through into the next crystal set as well as the goal. So we're going to be in Lust here, in CDs, that'll push through to the second set of crystals. You can see we popped a lot of evoker defensives on that first one. We're going to have a mage barrier coming up for the second one, and we're still in priest CDs here as well. Boom, here's the second one. We're in pre-CDs. Again, I'm popping as much damage as I can. The rest of Druid has a little bit of setup, but we also have Mage Barrier and other defenses out. And this one dies super fast because we have the ramped up pre-CDs here. I wonder, were we still in Lust for this? I don't think we were, right? Where is our... There it is. We just barely lost Lust here. So we weren't quite in Lust for this, but still the goal here is to kind of have coverage on the first two crystals. And then for this last crystal, we do delay a little bit the push slightly just so our healer can fully ramp up, because we are a bit lacking in terms of defensives and offensives for this next one. Our mage, of course, fire, they can prepare some damage for the crystal. And I believe we did that. I believe we had, I don't know what he said. Potentially he had a trinket or something he saved. I don't remember exactly, but this is also something you could run like Belorolos or Grief Torch for. If you're a tank, right, having Grief Torch for a problem crystal set, pretty valuable to help nuke down that big crystal. But you see, we're basically slowing here slightly just to let our Resto Druid just ramp up, because he's going to be carrying us on this last one a fair bit. And we're going to get the proc going out shortly here. And you can see we are also kind of moving away from these spawns. Like, as they happen, I'm creating space for us just so that we have room and we don't need to actually spend so much time worrying about having to dodge these orbs, right? So that's the goal with this boss movement here. But then we have the last crystal go out. Heavy coverage basically from the Resto Druid healing. We don't have many other CDs. We didn't get the Vampiric Embrace as well. I think we did. Yeah, we got it partway through. He insta pops the Vampiric Embrace, and this is mostly just personals, and then the mage damage CDs to push us through on that crystal. And then we're basically home free here, right? Like, as long as the tank doesn't die, you're basically at the end of this boss fight. It's all about managing those crystals. The other thing too is you can wombo combo yourself with the Unleashed Destruction here if you don't kill the crystal fast enough. So just be aware of when you push. Sometimes if you push just before the Unleashed Destruction, that would be the problem. If we had pushed with like 1 second left, because he would then come out of his stun here from the crystals triggering, and he would insta cast that, and that would be problematic, right? So be aware of that. But other than that, that is it for this video, and that is it for Dragonflight videos. I believe with the beta launching next week, we're going to be focusing on that stuff. So appreciate the support all throughout Dragonflight, guys. Super excited to continue that journey into War Within. I'm going to have plenty of content regarding tank specs shortly, you know, season 1 dungeons, delves, the Nurabar Palace raid, and much more. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel and are on the lookout for those videos. As always, thank you to my Patreons for all of your support. I could not do this without you, and I'll see everyone in the next video.